Session. At this time, I need a motion to open the work session, approval agenda.
So moved, Chairman.
We got a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Who's gonna start us off, Jason? Jason says talk slow tonight because he's doing everything. You ready? I didn't ask you if you was ready, did I?
Okay, we're streaming now.
All right, now we're streaming, okay. Who'd like to start tonight?
I can start, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman, with just a little introduction, and then, so I think we're sort of at the stage now where, we've talked about a good many different projects. Tim may have some other things he wants to add there, but I think what we'd really like, or what we would ask of the board at this point would be to consider kind of starting to narrow down and focus in on the large projects that you really want to do, and we're trying to have all this ready so that when our PFA is up and running, as soon as it gets up and running, we're ready to proceed with some of these projects. So I think just sort of any discussion or questions about what projects you're most interested in, I think would be helpful. And so that's about all I have in the way of an introduction. Tim, do you have anything that you want to add, maybe since we last met?
The couple things. We had, since we last met, the well number 10 for the Henderson plant has been, the well itself is finished and the test plant. It's going to yield 250 gallons a minute. But we have figured out that well 7 and well 9 has some influence on it. So I think for the long term, I think we probably drilled our last well in that area. I don't think we'll be able to drill any more there. Between the 4 of them, I know well 10 will be 250, well 9 is 400.
Yeah, it's about 380,
380, so that's 630.
and well, number 7 is about 350, 340.
So that's about 930, and the other one's about 70, so it's gonna give us about 1,000 gallons a minute.
Right.
Probably the best thing to do, we need to upgrade the aerator at the plant. Probably leave it alone and let the wells fluctuate, alternate among themselves. So we put 1,000 gallons a minute into it, and we may be able to add a little bit to the pump bowl and get a little bit more water out of it, but at least the wells out of pants, cut on, run, and cut off.
Right.
Where now they run nonstop.
Right.
So we'll get a little help out of that one. The other thing we have looked at, back in 2012, when Emirates closed, they gave 2 wells to Big Tim. One's at Ridge Road in Old Lord, the other one's across the street from Antioch Baptist Church on Old Lord. They're 1,000 gallons a minute apiece, and they're sitting there. They were test pumped in 12 and they haven't been run since. We have talked a little bit with Twiggs County about the wells. Jason and I were on a conference call today. There's some interest. The question is there interest from y'all? That's something we need y'all to talk about. Other than that, do you know, Chris, were y'all able to make any headway with the folks about the elevated tank up at Combslow and Light Time?
You've got a call in, John. You want to answer that one?
Yes, I did call the landowner in that area, over in the way at Light and Tie area. There was interest, but they needed to talk further with the family.
Okay.
And so they had my number, and I haven't heard anything. That's been, I think, 2 weeks ago. I
Sure.
called you after that phone call.
John used to rent the farm from us, so he had a direct contact with us. So.
Any luck with the banking family?
Not
Been
yet.
in contact?
We have not been able to
the last thing we're gonna try to do is open the gate and get that guy to call you, and maybe
Yeah.
see if he's got a contact, because I have contacted, numerous people. And a lot of people know the history of the family, but where everybody's at now, they don't know. I know the gentleman that's on the tax records, the number that the tax assessor had is no longer in service. And then when I sit there and Google him, all I find is obituaries. So he's, seniors obviously has, if this is the same senior, he's passed. Juniors, I wanna say North Georgia somewhere. And I have yet to find anybody that could give me a good number on it.
That's the same with us. It's just making traction on that either.
The person living back there, is he a part of the family or renting from them, or?
I don't think so. I don't think it has anything to do with the family, it's just wants that piece, has that piece of property there, but you can't go up to the door, because he's got he's got a gate beyond well 4 that wraps up to his house, and you don't really have a contact number.
I didn't see anybody other than the Bankins owned it back in there. I didn't, the tax map, I saw our 4 wells that are back there in a pretty size, like 63 or 68 acres in there, I think, on that one parcel. I don't remember seeing anything coming off it, though.
Yeah, if you get to well 4 on the left, there's a mobile home that sits back in there, and that's where that, when you get past well 4, there's a gate there, and that's his driveway that goes into that.
Right.
But he's not on it, he's not on the system or anything like
Right.
that.
Does he access that off Fox Road? Well, it seems like there's a piece that goes up to Fox Road. The other item that has come up that y'all are aware of is looking at sewer with the city. And trying to see what can be done, where it can be done, that type of thing. That's something that we would need input from y'all. Assuming you're gonna move that way, we need to meet with Cheyenne and I guess Matt and see what we can do, where we can do it at, and then report back to y'all on capacity, available capacity and location.
Commissioner Kitchen, you were talking about running up Gray Highway would be a no-brainer. It'd give us the ability to develop Gray Highway, expand it out that way. And, I think it's great. I hope we can work out something that, we can work with the city on that.
Chairman, is it appropriate to give instructions on what we think as a board that we ought to look at? I know when we talk about Gray Highway, are we talking about, and I talked to Tim a little bit about it, are we as a board talking about from the Bibb County line up to a point, say past Joy Cliff, where we've already got some commercial, or are we talking from that point to the city limits of Gray, or are we talking about from city of Macon to the city of Gray limits?
We don't have to go from the city of Gray toward that direction to get to. That's where, the nearest lift station's right at the bottom of 18. So we had
Working
to
on
start there. We couldn't come backwards on it and work our way toward Joy Cliff.
Originally, when we looked at this back in 2010, we were pumping to the treatment plant. We were pumping to the treatment plant on Wolf Creek. We weren't pumping in the system anymore, because there were no stations in the system that could handle it.
Right.
Based on our existing infrastructure, what do you guys recommend? Because I know we've had interest from companies looking at Gray, and obviously the 18 connector, and then we've also had some interest looking all the way down Joy Cliff and Gray Highway area. So based on existing infrastructure, what do you recommend?
Honestly, I don't know till I really look at the costs. From the county line, Bibb Jones County line to Gray is about a 200 vertical foot rise. And it is 6 miles, 8
Mhm.
miles. It's a long way. And so when we looked at this before, we had 4 intermediate pump stations, it would take 5 to get all from Gray, to take Joy Cliff all the way back would take 5. And so that's kind of one, if we have capacity, were we getting capacity?
Mm-hmm.
2, how much? And then 3, what areas do you expect to see development? Do you put some out on the bypass? Do you put some out at 129 on the bypass? Do you stay south and hit the areas that already have some development? I mean, right now, I don't know. We need to talk to Cheyenne and find out where we can tie, if they're making any system improvements, and see what we can do.
I think that might help our decision a little bit, because I mean, I'm sure all of us have different ideas, but mine, I think there's already some development along Gray Highway, you know, either close to the city of Gray or around the Joy Cliff, you know, and even potential along there. We've had interest over the years, you know, especially coming out on Joy Cliff to Gray Highway in both directions right there within a short span of that. Personally, I think the bypass, while that would be a great potential, I just don't see it in the next 5-10 years, you know, and that's a huge build out for us, I think, and to be honest, the only potential we're seeing right now is at the cross sections, and you know, DOT's not, I mean, we don't see a huge jump through the hoops to build some off-roads there to get access to them, so that, while I think that's going to be a viable driver in the future, I don't know if that's our first spot to try to look.
I agree with Sam on that, because you have certain tracks along the bypass may appear to be very, appealing to develop. You know, certain landowners have put properties into long-term tax reduction credits like Cuba.
Mm.
So you're not, you're 10 years out on some properties, and other properties, looking at the map and doing research, is they've taken out some properties. So really your corners are the only areas of the bypass that potentially are developable. So, it's a long term. You gotta grow to that area, I think.
Well, I think, I think right at the corner of the bypass in 18, that's, it won't be long on that, we start seeing activity
Yeah.
there.
But I think we catch that from Gray Highway, right?
Right.
Instead of having to go down the bypass, we catch it.
Well, it's actually a lift station right already
Yeah,
there.
it's across the road, and
Yeah.
that's already, that full site's in the
It's up
city
there.
already.
Yeah, I mean, he's already got a force main running through there now. And then, he's got gravity, well, he's
Yeah,
got
it's
both.
gravity and
Yeah, he's got both,
Got
got
both.
gravity and force main through there now, so he's already got, what he needs there, but, comprehensive plan, we've got the Eaton Highway and the bypass at, future development. And that corner was really the only 2 sites that we've got. And, let's say tomorrow somebody decides they want to develop right there on the corner of Eaton Highway and 129 and the bypass, was just a short trip down to 129 toward the, I think the sun picks up right there at
Northside Villas.
Yeah.
Northside Villas would be your closest drop.
So, it's just a short hike through there to the gravity right there.
I think these are those times where obviously the partnership with Gray is a no-brainer. Whatever we can leverage from shared resources or even combining efforts to extend it to those opportunistic areas is a no-brainer. I think the other component is you have to look at Joy Cliff and the other components where there could be interest, and maybe some goes to Gray and some goes back to Macon, until we make the connection in between. If we are able to leverage any future grants to tie the two together, or we really make a commitment, the next flash after the next, we're all doing infrastructure, because it's been long overdue. I mean, we just did this huge bond that was necessary 8 years ago. We will have to piece the pieces together, again, until we commit to that. And I would say, now's a good time to be looking at that next splash, you know. Here's the capital project that we need to do for the infrastructure to make it happen. Knowing where our EMCs are going with high-speed internet makes a big difference too. I want to take the rest of my utilities where the internet's going, because if we bring water out there but they can't connect to the internet, what good is it? Everybody's Wi-Fi. I mean, or high speed because of what has happened in the pandemic. So I think we have to be forward thinking about that as well.
I think this gives us an opportunity, we've talked in the past, maybe get with the city, you know, because, you know, they're struggling trying to find water and keep spending more and more money looking for it, and they hadn't had a whole lot of luck. So Tim and I have talked, and I think several of us talked about getting a commitment out of the city. You know, they'll buy X number of gallons from us, and, you know, we try to help them on the rates, and then vice versa, maybe help us on the sewer too. So maybe we can all work together on that and to make it a win-win for everybody. I'd love to see that.
Yep. Agreed.
And without,
I was sharing this with Cindy the other day as we're, doing our planning. Now, I don't know if this has ever been done, but have you, as a board, sat down and had like a comprehensive plan? This is where the board wants this county to go in 3 to 5 years, or this is where we feel we want the county to go in 5 to 10 years. That way, we can plan accordingly. I feel like almost where we need to have your vision, where you want the county to go, therefore our vision can wrap around your vision. We can plan accordingly. Have you all done anything like that?
the infamous words of Sam Cooke, it's been a long time.
I think there's the issue seems to be, we're talking about stuff we talked about 10 years ago. We're talking about stuff we talked about 15 years ago. And it always seems like something gets in the way of your plan when you plan for something in the future. I think Commissioner Martin hit on it. We have to set a goal that may be a 20-year goal, but if we put stuff in place now where, say, we tie in Gray and we tie in Macon and we have to make that connection, it almost guides people into whatever board is here, whoever's on this board says it's a no-brainer to hook these two up now, to spend another $5 million to hook this up. And then you got $5 million, $5 million, $5 million, and eventually you've got a $20 or $30 million project that has went over three splosh. It seems like we've kicked the can down the road several times because it just seems like it's too big of an apple to take a bite out of. So we just don't do anything. And then until it gets to a point where, you know what, we're all starving, we got to do something. And so, yeah, I think we've made huge strides in commitment to this splosh that we're going to do some infrastructure. And, you know, that's water production and then get some distribution out of it. And now we've got some partnership opportunities with the city with sewer and water. I think we move in that direction and make commitments now. We can't commit to the next board, but we can make commitments now that guide that direction for a long-term plan anyway.
I think Tim has had a priority plan from my first term that I've seen, and I assume it was made before I came on board. So he's probably had 8 or 9 iterations of where this body was trying to go. And to your point, we probably need to say, all right, this is where we're going. Put the pieces together, make the map out, and hopefully, piece by piece, we connect the dots. And I'm open to having that conversation because I think it's been long overdue. And then making it concrete, and if we have to do another bond issue that gets us from C to D or C to E, then let's do that, and let's leave a plan for the next group to go from E to F and so on.
In terms of development, there's even different types of development. Do you want just residential? Do you want like commercial, light industry, or do you want, it takes different forms of infrastructure for it. So I mean, that's what I was, just thinking about that the other day as to what we really need to have like a plan. That way we can coordinate obviously there's certain things that, would be a no-brainer just to do now, but just kind of looking forward,
And I'm gonna ask you guys to, here we have some capacity or flow. If we build it, do we have the flow for it? So that has to be a part of it too, because we talked about building new water plants some time ago. And I think we're at that juncture where if we're really gonna make a effort at expanding the system, then we have to look at the entire system, the production side of it. And then I'm just going to use River North. We know that there's a sewer opportunity over there that we're servicing and giving money to Macon, tying that in. And so that those funds come back to further fund the future growth of the other infrastructure needs we have.
Just to step back, we are still pushing more toward the groundwater side for production. A surface water plant, the 3 MGD, just make this hypothetical. We go to River North, we have 3 MGD capacity out of the reservoir of raw water. Surface water plant is $5 to $6 a gallon. So 3 million gallon plants, $15 million. And then a little line work, we'd spend $17, $18 million to build a plant to get that 3 million out of it. Okay. If something worked with Twigs, we were able to go down there and get 2,000 gallon per minute wells, 1,050 gallons a minute wells, we'll probably spend $4 million, $4.5 million to get it back to the Henderson plant. Probably $6 million to get it all the way to 49. So groundwater is 35–40% of what surface water is, and that's one reason we continue to look that way. Typically, it's a lot easier to treat. It's more cost effective to use, and it's not as labor intensive. So I had somebody ask me about the reservoir the other day, and us going to the reservoir and getting raw water out of it. You know, the day may come that may happen. I don't think we have to do it right now. I think that's, in 20 years from now, we may be going over and do it. If we can put another 3 MGD into the system, that's gonna give us almost 6 million gallons a day. We ought to be good. We ought to be good for 20 years, 25 years. Granted, housing development could boom next week. We could have an industry come in a year and wipe it out, but still.
But that would be a good problem, because if we
That
got
would be
that,
a good
if we
problem.
got that tax base, then we can afford to build more.
And one other thing, when we looked at this in 2010, sewer on Gray Highway, from the metering flume at Clifton Ridge, we can get gravity to Gray Highway to Georgia. There's some deep cuts and there's some difficult terrain, but we can get gravity up there, so we don't have to have a pump station. We probably can go up somewhere there around the old baby tackle shop to where Darrell Bridges has that piece, get Gray Highway, and probably run gravity up to about R.L. Wheeler Road, somewhere in that neighborhood. If we set a station on Gray Highway, it'll take 4 or 5 to get it all the way back, maybe 6. The original, 10 years ago, the original price of sewer Gray Highway was $16 million, but that was the sewer all over. I think that's something we weren't able to get across, not sewer all over. Just do a piece of it. And down the road, we'll do another piece. And just, because I don't think it's ever really gonna reach its potential till it has sewer on it. But enough there. The priority list, this year, we did make a priority list on the projects that we gave you, the Henderson Road, Wood Creek Plain improvements, Second Railroad, Masseyville, Grizzleville, the bypass connection to Gray Highway, North Plank Tie, elevated tank. Those, from the war side, those were our priorities. On the sewer side, inflow and infiltration work at River North is a priority. Because anytime it rains, we're sending them rainwater right down sewer line.
What page are you on, Tim?
Uh,
Is this in our book, or you just,
I'm sorry, it was in the notebook I brought.
I think
brought
it's
y'all last time.
14.
I think there's one.
14, go to page
Yeah,
14.
It's upside down, but
14 of 118.
this 14?
yep,
Gotcha.
you gotta rotate your book.
It has
It'll
to-
flip like 6 times.
Those first five, a variation of those first five were our improvements. We gotta have production, and we need storage. Gray Highway bypass connections, instead of putting the station there, it gives us a second way to pump water gray. But number two at the bottom, infiltration work at River Noble, we have done some, and we have seen some difference. But we got a couple manholes on 17, you can see sunlight, and they're sitting in the creek. I mean, there's some things over there that need to be done. And this president, puts the sewer on Gray Highway, work a deal with the city. How we pay for it? Is that gonna come out of this DFA bond that's been talked about? We're gonna take some money out of the bank, out of the general fund, to pay for it? Those are the difficult questions y'all get to decide. But we're ready whenever y'all are, to make a move and start getting some issues done, get some issues corrected.
I definitely like the idea, maybe working with Twigs on those 2 wells, that would be a big boost to it.
Tim, you have any idea cost, or is that something you want to investigate and see cost it would get it back out to? Because when we talk about coming from Twigs, we talk about hitting water 57, 49 towards Joycliff, and then we get sewer, Joycliff to Gray Highway. Pretty soon we got a connection of water and sewer on a route right there. Am I thinking wrong on that, or?
No, I think that the maps, right now, Masseyville, Largo, and Grizzleville all pump to the Joycliff tank. There's a booster station at 49 Chapman Road?
Yeah, Clark Chapman.
Chapman, and down there by the wall, that pumps up to the ground storage tank. And then Henderson pumps straight up Light Tie Corridor. We come from Twigs, depending on what we do, how we work it. Somewhere down around Henderson, Grizzleville, the railroad track, we put in some type of ground storage tank. We pump to Gray Highway. We pump up Grizzleville Road, which the line's not there, but we could pump toward Grizzleville Road and send water to Joycliff. We could pump up Henderson Road, send water to the 49 ground storage tank. I think that area has been a focus for us for a while because it gives us options. I mean, there's 10 years ago, when Freddie bought his boring machine, his first bore he put in was a 24-inch casing on a railroad track. It's still sitting there, it's empty. And we slide 16-inch line through there, and we're good to go. Just a matter of where we want to go. So,
not to beat a dead horse, but that's another example of we bought something, we done something, and we got no result from it. So we need to follow through with our plan. But I think that's the options that for me to make a decision, you know, what's our best route for what's our best bang for our buck? You know, is it when you talked about it, that was my thought, was we got a lot more options coming from that Twiggs well if we know we can't dig more wells in that area out there because we're going, you know, 3 different directions off the same main line.
Well, I had a long conversation with Donald Green Friday morning. I drilled a well on Henderson Road, somewhere down in that area now. I spent $375,000. I get anywhere from 250 gallons a minute, 500 gallons a minute. I go to Tweeds County and I spend $500,000 for a well. I get 1,000 gallons a minute, I might get 1,500. So, not much difference in the money. The capacity is twice, 3 times what I can get here. Now granted, you're gonna spend about $2.2, $2.3 million running a water line from that intersection to the railroad track. I mean, it's every bit of 5 miles from that well all the way. But if I get 3 million gallons a day out of there.
Pretty quick
just
return.
sit there. If they're willing to let us do it, EPD doesn't have an issue with it, as long as the county agrees to it.
And it could be done with a IGA, or would we need to lease the property and we gotta protect our, I guess, our interest in the well and our rates, you know.
Right.
And I'd hate to get a good agreement and then get some good development and Tweeds County go, you know what, that looks like a money-making venture for me.
Well, I'm assuming whatever we do, we would get an IGA, and I don't know how long it need to be, 50 years, I guess.
You can do them up to 50 years, but, I mean, if we just buy the wells outright, we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, you buy them outright.
I prefer ownership to leasing
Me
any
too.
day of the week.
I like owning it, I don't like,
Yep.
you know,
And I'll tell you now, in 2012, they pumped. We ran them and pumped them and pulled samples out of them. They've been touched since. So it's gonna take probably 20 grand a well to go in and put a right angle drive on it and pump it and see what it'll do.
So do we have a price on what it would cost?
No,
Okay.
no. They, we've had some conversations, in general. The board may tell us to take a jump, I don't know. The guy we were talking to didn't feel for that. But I know in years past, and he told us in years past, they tried to get the 3 systems up there to make them work hard. Like one party wouldn't touch it.
So you think would we go for both of them or one of them, or what's the recommendation on that? Or just fill it out and see what they're,
I think fill it out and see. If you get to the intersection of Ridge and Old Gordon, you go up George Carolyn Drive, there's one sitting there on the right. The other one is 2 miles down the road in front of Antioch Baptist Church up on the hill. Maybe you get both of them, and somewhere down the road, if you work out a situation where you took over the water system up there, not saying you want to, but if you do, there's a well along the way that test pump is 600 gallons a minute. I mean, there are other options. Of course, you could run up there to the other one and run a line back and operate. You just gotta sit down and, are you interested? If you are, they're interested, just sit down and try to work out some information.
Free,
if they're not using it, I mean, that would solve a lot of our needs right here.
is that something we can administratively give them direction to bring us back some numbers and some thoughts, something we can vote on, and 'cause I'm for it.
especially if it's free. I love it. And the idea of if it has existing customers, you know, it sort of pays for itself if we have to make some level of investment. So yeah, I'm with Sam on that. Let's
Yep.
work free first.
So we can get, you know, what you can come back with us with, and I think it's a no-brainer myself.
Can y'all do me a small favor, maybe the board a small favor if there's interest? If you don't have the map already, can you show us that map that has what we have and then the gaps in between and what it would cost to start making these bites out of this apple or elephant, which makes sense?
When you talking about sewer or water?
Both.
Headache.
All right.
In 2011, we designed all the water system for this area,
It's my personal copy.
and the board bid it, and the new board, when the board changed, they killed it. The well we're talking about is right here.
Mhm.
This is Donovan Road, and Ridge Road comes down to 57, a little bit further. Here's a little better, there's the Jones County line, 57 runs through here. We can do you a better map
Okay.
than this, but that's what the areas look like.
Okay.
But the sewer, make it a little bit
Well,
better.
that's pretty.
Y'all, this is similar to what that one is. Sewer. Here's
Look at
the,
that
Macon Bibb, Jones County line, here's Joy Cliff Road. Let me take it back, am I right? Yeah, there's Joy Cliff Road. Gravity will run from this area up here. It'll be deep. It's deep at the back of Clifton Ridge, which is in this area, right in here. The green is existing gravity sewer that's there, but this blue will run, it'll flow. We haven't done anything detailed, but there are plans for part of this, and so we know it'll flow. And it's just a matter of where you wanna go from here. I mean, you've got a pump station, that should be Rock Creek. That's the one there by Greens, Sand Creek. I think this is Bonner Creek, or this one's Bonner. I don't know what this intermediate one is.
Roswell Lake.
Yeah, Brownsville Lake, thank you. But there's several different ways you can just hit these bottoms. But what's interesting to know, that everything from the railroad track in Gray flows by gravity to Walnut Creek. Every bit of it flows by gravity down those creeks to Walnut Creek.
Wow.
Yeah. The ridge is here and it all goes that way. But anyway,
Poop flows downward.
so it's just a matter of what areas you want to look at, what detail you want to do.
And it was 16 million, right, to go all the way up Gray Highway?
All the pump stations, all the gravity, and all the force main, do it all. That was 10 years ago.
So factoring in for inflation, what's it, 28 million now?
Probably every bit of 20, 25. Rock price has doubled since then, and it was $110 a cubic yard. It's $230, $240, sometimes $275 a cubic yard. But there's a lot of information. When that was originally put together, Doug Redmond sat down and we put together financing, we put together customers, we put together debt service, every bit of it. I mean, it just needs to be updated. Just a matter of what you want to do, where you want to go.
The good thing is we're not reinventing the wheel, even though we're pumping it back up for the 12th time. What y'all's thoughts? I think we need to update it and make a plan to move on it.
I'm not a fan of busy work, so if we give them the assignment, let's make a decision, gentlemen and lady. And look at what our next SPLOST cycle looks like, what our general fund looks like, what kind of bond availability, and what ACCG will be willing to do. And then let's reach out to Congressman Scott's office. They mentioned that, hey, if you're going to do this massive project, yeah, we got some money.
Their biggest, I've met with them twice in the last 2 weeks. Their biggest thing they're gonna tell you is stop JIFA. There is a funding agency that works out of the US EPA called WIFIA, WIFIA. They will do half of a project and they don't do anything less than $5 million. A lot of their projects are in the 20 to 50 million range.
So if we had a $20 million project, they're going to forgive half. Is that what I heard?
No, they'll loan you half.
Oh, loan us. I was like, oh, JIFA, I love
Loan
them.
you 49%.
Okay.
But I think the interest rate's 0.5 or 0.6. You have to come up with another half. And they don't care where it comes from.
Right.
You just have to come up with another.
I think it's a good opportunity because we're paying some debt retirement with the SPLOST that we're doing. We're looking at a PFA, so we got the ability to do some financing mechanism. We got some debt that's gonna come off the books, whether it's, eventually we're gonna get the, recreation and, industrial park and all that stuff paid off. And those are pretty big ticket items that if you pay one off and shift that, that's a pretty good payment we can make getting customers on board too, because then we start looking at the revenue side of it.
And then, of course, we have our construction accountants that could service some debt for a significant amount of time. I mean, if we got $1 million in there, that's
Between the two of them, you got right at 2.
$2 million. That's a lot of payments. I don't know how
At least
many.
enough to get us through a project build, so
Absolutely.
that we start getting a little return on our money. So I agree.
So I'm a fan of going back to what we probably talked about 8 or 9 times, where the sources of the greatest customer pickup is for water, right? That's what we always base it on. And then on the sewer, you already have the priority projects here. Graham Road is 240, Highway 49, 297, and it trickles off 20, 60, 69. To me, those are the no-brainers, because those are opportunities for the revenue to help support the debt. If you're talking about adding anywhere from almost 700 customers on $12 million, that's a pretty good service debt ratio, not to mention having a couple million in the construction accounts to help fund it. And that gets us to a splash, whether that's a handoff to some new people or a congratulations to some existing folks. They're setting up for the next little piece that will connect the infrastructure to where business and industry is going to go. I think that becomes a no-brainer, but that would be my direction. Look at where, like Sam said, update the numbers that Redmond had, and then let's look at the big numbers here that get us the most clients from the other projects that are on this page 14.
If we do achieve to get the wells, as we were talking, that would definitely be the capacity we need to go down 49. Because if we mentioned before, we would be in good shape.
Because, if we put another one over there, say we put one over there where we're talking about on the Bacon property, it could very well affect the other 4, couldn't it? Just like what we'd have seen now.
It may be, it's just, we'll have to look at the spacing. We were, from 10 to 7, we were a little over 1,200 feet. And from 9 to 10, we were about 760, 770.
Right.
What was interesting, it was pumping 252 at 120 feet. 7 came on, and it pulled down to 123 feet. 9 came on, it pulled down to 130 feet. But still pumping 252, it didn't move. Usually when the water level moves, it's faster moves, it didn't move.
Right.
So that didn't concern greens, it didn't really bother us either.
Mhm.
I think the water's there, it's just, I think we have reached our limit of what we're gonna get right there.
Right.
Grizzleville, yeah, that's the Swift Creek side of the park. We probably need to go back in there 1,000 feet if we can.
Mhm.
They may tell us nothing, they may not be interested in it, we'll have to look somewhere else.
Sure.
But there seems to be, Largo is downstream from that, so is Masseyville.
Mhm.
It seems to be a lot of water in that bottom.
But if we got Twiggs County, we wouldn't need the banking then. Is that right, or we still would want it?
It'd be nice to have it, it would not be as near as important.
Chin, do we know the what type of water those wells produce, or does it have iron in it?
When we cut them off in 2012, the water quality was okay.
So we wouldn't have to talk about filtration in Henderson if we.
I don't think so. That's, once we test it, if we get to a point where we actually put a test pump on it and we run it, we'll catch full set samples and run samples.
Is there any other questions tonight? We got about 10 minutes before we go to our open meeting.
I don't think so. Is there anything, Tim, that y'all need from us as far as guidance or decisions tonight? I mean, I think we got some direction. May not be clear, but it's,
I think we need to, I don't know if y'all formally did go sit down with Cheyenne, talk to the city and see what they,
It's gonna be on the agenda tonight. Yeah.
and then, we'll send them the formal direction to go sit down and talk to the county and address the matter.
We'll probably do that tonight too.
okay.
All right. Is there anything else for our work session tonight? Done, I need a motion to adjourn the work session.
Motion to adjourn the work session, Chairman.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I'm there, aye. Thank you.
Sorry, who did it?
Turn this thing all the way around.
Worked on it a few years back and